We move on now and take a look at what's been filling the papers this Friday morning here in France. And our press reviewer, Alison Sargent, is here on set to help us do that. Alison, we're starting with that tragic news of that bus and a train collision in the south of France, which has killed 4 children and injured dozens others.
Right, Thomas, this happened in the south of France, not far from the border from Spain. The local press really only has one word for it this morning: horror. You can take a look at the front page of L'Indépendant. That's a paper from Perpignan, which is the closest big city to where this crash happened. Almost the exact same headline on the front page of Midi Libre: horror in Millas. That's the town the middle school students were from. As you can see from this photo, their bus was literally cut in half. The school will be in session today, actually, but students won't be in class. Instead, they'll be having discussions, receiving psychological support. They'll also be joined by France's education minister, who's going to go there today. It's a very big story in the national papers as well. Le Parisien calls it a tragedy, and it reminds us that it's really not clear how this happened, how that bus ended up getting stuck on the train crossing. Many papers are pointing out that this is really a recurring problem here in France. Actually, every year, 30 people die at train crossings, and it's a number that pretty much remains stable every single year. Just last month, actually, a family of 3 was killed at a train crossing in the north of France. So the government is investigating this latest tragedy, and hopefully they'll find some answers.
Very sad news there from the south of France this Friday morning. Let's move on now to French politics, and a familiar name is back in the headlines.
All right, this is François Hollande. You might remember him. He was the president of France this time last year. He has gone on a very popular radio show last night, a rare treat. He actually hasn't spoken very much publicly since he left office. Aujourd'hui en France brings us the highlights of that interview today. It seems he went pretty easy on the new president, Emmanuel Macron, who was his former economy minister. He credits himself actually a little bit for Macron's success, according to him. He says he did leave the country in pretty good shape already. Meanwhile, Le Parisien says Hollande torpedoed Jean-Luc Mélenchon, that is the far-left leader of La France Insoumise, France Unbowed. He said that Mélenchon hardly qualifies as real opposition, offers no propositions or alternatives for people, so very harsh words there. And then finally, Hollande says he is working on a book to offer his ideas on how to get the Socialist Party, which is not doing so well, back into shape.
Well, members of the current French government are also making headlines this Friday. Le Figaro is taking a closer look at the Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe.
Right, a man who has made his mark on the government, according to Le Figaro. They describe his style as a mix of simplicity and rigor, and what's particularly noteworthy about the prime minister, according to Le Figaro, is his relationship to the president. Le Figaro notes that usually there's a bit of a rivalry between a French president and his prime minister. Well, there's none of that, actually, between Emmanuel Macron and Edouard Philippe. There's actually more of a bromance going on between those two. And Le Figaro says even their approval ratings rise and fall as one. Now they're back on the rise after initially being down after the election. The only problem, though, is that over a third of French people still don't know who Edouard Philippe is.
Well, there's another politician hoping to get his name back into the minds of French people, to get some more recognition. That's the former vice president of the far-right party, the National Front, Florian Philippot.
Right, you might remember him as well. He was Marine Le Pen's right-hand man. He quit the party in September. That was a big political breakup here in France, made a lot of waves on the political scene. Well, he has inaugurated the headquarters of his new party, the Patriots. Le Figaro says this political rebirth is actually going to be a pretty difficult gamble for Florian Philippot. The paper says there's a long list of politicians who have defected from the National Front, who have tried to form their own parties. All of them have failed in the past. Philippot also doesn't have a great image. Not only will he have to shake off his association with the National Front, he's also seen as quite cold. And Le Figaro said he's hoping to publish an autobiographical essay this spring, and he's going to change all of that.
Well, moving away from French politics, the left-wing paper Libération is taking a look at global income inequality.
The paper has published a study from French economist Thomas Piketty, and his conclusion is that even if worldwide inequality continues to increase, well, Europe at least isn't doing so bad, at least compared to other countries. Inequality has risen far less in Western Europe than it has in the US specifically, and Piketty attributes that to more progressive tax systems, which he says do a far better job at distributing the wealth. This is an article today in Libération I think that lawmakers in the US might want to take a look at as they prepare to pass their new new tax bill.
Well, speaking of wealth distribution, we have one final story from you, Alison. It seems the coach of the Paris football club, Paris Saint-Germain, was robbed in the middle of their latest game.
Right, this happened on Wednesday while he was away for their game in Strasbourg. His house back in Paris in the 16th arrondissement was robbed. Unai Emery, that's his name. You can see him looking not so happy there in that picture from Aujourd'hui en France. Now, the team won the game, but the coach lost 20,000 euros, a Rolex watch, soccer jerseys, and a list that includes the salaries of all PSG players. So we'll see if,
Ouch.
Yeah, we'll see if that comes out and gets leaked anytime soon. Robbery is never fun for anyone, Thomas, but I'd say that given what this man's salary is, he'll likely make it all back pretty quickly.
Let's hope so. Alison Sargent with the French Press Review. Thank you very much.